Hello there, you're welcome here again to Prep with Chigozie, a YouTube channel specifically designed to help you slay the verbal section of the digital SAT. So you're welcome here again. Yeah. Today we're going to be discussing run-ons, a very quick, easy to understand topic. Yes. Now, if you've been following the episode on this playlist, you should understand by now that we've been treating all the standard English convention topics. And you should understand that it is a continuum. So you have to have watch the previous videos before you can really understand it, especially the previous video on punctuation marks, right? It will put this topic you're going to watch today in better perspective for you. Yes, in fact, I like to think that run-ons help you. If you understand run-ons, you tend to understand how to use punctuation marks generally, especially as it has to do with the comma. Yes, the comma. Now, let's delve right into today's discussion. Now, what is a run-on? A run-on is simply a wrong use of the punctuation mark, especially the comma. It simply means using the comma between two independent clauses. I mentioned earlier, right? So you have to have watched the previous video. On the previous video, I discussed independent and dependent clauses. So you may need to go back there, watch that carefully, then come back here if you really need to understand what dependent and independent clauses mean. Yes, so we say we have a run-on clauses. In other words, we have a comma between two complete ideas. Yes, in particular sense, we like to refer to such wrong use of the comma as a comma splice. So if you've ever heard comma splice, this is what it means, using the comma between two independent clauses. I'll give you an example. You have it displayed on my screen right now. The smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, comma. He subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. See, wrong. Because we have two complete ideas. The first of which is the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks. So you see, that's the complete idea. And the next part gives you he, subject in this case, subscribed the verb to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. So you see, it is wrong. I'm sure we usually do this whenever we're chatting with our friends on want to always chat correctly so that it doesn't infiltrate into your common English usage. You understand? Yes. Now, we also have a run-on when we don't even have any punctuation mark between two independent clauses. Yes, that is another kind of run-on. Having no punctuation mark at all between two complete ideas. So, it is wrong to have the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks. He subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. This is even more wrong, right? So, having a comma between two complete ideas or two independent clauses, or not having any punctuation at all between two complete ideas or two independent clauses, we refer to such writing as run-ons. Hope that makes better sense, right? Yes. So let's look at the various ways we can fix run-ons in English. Yes. In the first of which is quite common, is to use the period, to use the full stop. To use the full stop. So we can have the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, the full stop. He subscribed to the Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. So you see, it makes common sense now. Of which, remember, if you watch the previous video, you should understand by now that after a full stop, the next alphabet should be in capital letter. So that explains why we have the he in capital letter this time around. We could also have, I'm sure your guess is as good as mine by now. We could have the semicolon. Yes, remember in the last class we understood that the semicolon is essentially used to demarcate two independent clauses of related ideas. I think the semicolon is even doing the job. We'll do this job of this sentence we're working with right now better than the full stop, if you ask me. So we can have the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, the semicolon. He subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. So you see, both ideas are connected. In fact, the second shows light to the previous. So the semicolon is even preferably used. We could also change one of the one part of the sentence to a dependent clause. We can change one part of the sentence into a dependent clause. And you understand what a dependent clause is by now, right? So we could also have, because the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, comma, he subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. So you see, because the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, that is a dependent clause. Remember, we have certain dependent clause markers, of which the word because is one of them. So having because begin that expression automatically becomes what? A dependent clause. In more particular sense, if you remember from the last class, a subordinate clause. Because the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, comma, he subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. So you see, that is one way of dealing with the run-on. We could also have the run-on fixed by using a FANBOYS conjunction. Yes, a FANBOYS conjunction. Remember your FANBOYS conjunction, right? That is the mnemonic for all the coordinating conjunctions in English. I'm referring to for, F start for for, A for and, N for nor, O for or, no, B, I think B comes first, yes. B for but, O for or, Y for yet, S for so. I think out of all of these conjunctions, the one that best suits the expression we're working with right now, I think it will be so, right? Yes. So we can have the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, comma, so he subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. Now see, this expression is quite similar to the previous, where I used the because. But then it is wrong to use the because and the so in the same sentence. In fact, it is wrong to use two conjunctions that have the same meaning in one sentence. So you cannot say because the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, comma, so he's required to Prep with Chigozie. No, the so is doing the job of the because already. So you just choose one, and one of which, of course, marks the dependent clause, the because. And notice how I used the coordinating conjunction in that sense. I used it with a comma. Yes, because both ideas are two complete ideas. It is wrong to have the smart student needed to understand common SAT tricks, so he's required to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. No, the comma has to be there preceding the so. You understand? So we must have the comma and the FANBOYS conjunction between two independent clauses. Hope that point is taken. Yes, there is one other way to fix run-ons in English, which would of course expand on in a subsequent class. That is the use of the modifying phrase. Yes, the use of the modifying phrase. The modifying phrase typically starts your expression on the SAT. In fact, it's an entire topic on its own that is often tested under the standard English conventions, right? So you would often have certain expressions that seem to be describing something or someone, and they begin the expression so that after the comma, remember it is also a phrase, and after every phrase beginning a sentence there should be a comma. So immediately after the comma, right, at the end of a modifying phrase, we should have the proper subject which the modifying phrase describes. Now, I will use this expression to give you a typical example of how the modifying phrase is used to fix a run-on expression. Now here, we can have this. Wanting to understand common SAT tricks. So I'm left asking, who is wanting to understand, right? Usually, modifying phrase, whenever it begins your expression, it leads to asking two questions. Who or what? Why? Because it is a descriptive phrase. So you just left asking, okay, who is being described here, or what is being described here, or what is referred to here, who is referred to here. Wanting to understand common SAT tricks, comma, the smart student subscribed to Prep with Chigozie on YouTube. Now you see how that sounds. After the modifying phrase, we have the subject being described, right? Beginning an independent clause of its own, Now we'll quickly look at one or two examples on proper SAT questions, and of course at the end of the day we want to believe it to help you understand how to identify run-on expressions, and of course how to select better options that either use the semicolon, the full stop, the dependent clause, the modifying phrase, or the FANBOYS conjunction to fix the run-on issue. Now we'll treat some of the sentences on this page you're seeing right on my screen right now. Yes. So the first, number one, right? We have Sir John Alexander MacDonald, the first Prime Minister of Canada, is widely praised as a great Canadian hero. By the way, the first Prime Minister of Canada is a non-essential information. If you watch the previous video, you should understand what that means. It is an information that the sentence can do well without. So I can take out that information and still have a complete independent clause, a complete idea, right? So when you're dealing with English conventions question, and yes, reading those non-essentials could waste your time, right? So Sir John Alexander MacDonald is widely praised as a great Canadian hero. The next, there's a full stop, which indicates that the first has ended. That's the first sentence. We didn't have his determination and tenacity. That sounds like an independent clause already. We, subject, of course, didn't have the verb phrase, so we already have an independent clause. And the next one after the comma, our great country would not be the same as it is today. Another independent clause, right? Our great country being the subject of this new independent clause. So you see, we have a comma right in the middle there, which is wrong. We should fix this some way, right? So look at the option. We have without. Option B gives you, of course, option A is the sentence the way it is already given, which is obviously wrong. So A is not our answer. Let's try an option B. Without his determination and tenacity, our great country. So you see, without his determination and tenacity is what? A dependent clause. So we can have a dependent clause and then the comma, the independent clause after. So we have one complete complex sentence. The run-on has been fixed that way. Yeah, very well. The next example we have, born in Scotland on January 11, 1815, comma, we have John immigrated to the new country with his parents at a very young age. Is this wrong? This is as good as mine. It is not wrong, because that expression that begins the sentence, born in Scotland on January 11th, 1815, so you see, that is a modifying phrase. So typically I'm left asking who was born in Scotland on this date. John immigrated. So John is the proper subject referred to in that modifying phrase. He soon began working under a local lawyer in Kingston, comma, his mentor died before he could complete his apprenticeship. So obviously that is also a run-on. Two complete ideas side by side. Formation already given in the sentence. He soon began working under a local lawyer in Kingston. We now have, however, his mentor died before. No, this is even wrong. We cannot have the however between two complete ideas. Note that we cannot have a transition in the middle of two complete ideas. We can only have a transition in the middle of one complete idea. By the way, in the next class, you're going to fully understand how to use punctuation marks around transitional words, right? Just the punctuation around transitions. How you know this? Read off the transition, because of course it is marked by two commas. And remember what I said about two commas or two dashes marking off something, right? So if we take that off, see whether we have one complete idea. If we do, then A, B is correct. If we do not have one complete idea, one independent clause, then obviously option B would be wrong. So he soon began working under a local lawyer in Kingston. His mentor died before he could complete his apprenticeship. This is giving you one kind of run-on, obviously. The kind of run-on that doesn't give any punctuation mark between two complete ideas. So we have two complete ideas, in other words, and we have the transition in the middle. So obviously option B is wrong in that way, right? Option C certainly cannot work. The semicolon and the FANBOYS conjunction do not exist together, except in scenarios where the semicolon is used to mark off items in the list. So you would also need to watch the previous video to really understand this. Remember, this is a continuum, so you have to have watched the previous video to really understand subsequent videos. So C will not work. The semicolon does not come with the FANBOYS conjunction between two independent clauses. We should rather have a comma and the FANBOYS conjunction, not the semicolon. I think I see the best answer already. Option D, I think I predicted that answer already, a comma and a but. So he soon began working under a local lawyer in Kingston, comma, but his mentor died. So you see, the comma and the FANBOYS conjunction between two independent clauses is one way to fix the run-on. Yes, I want to believe you're a smart student. Especially if you're new here, you want to subscribe to this channel, as of course it will help you better understand all possible SAT tricks as long as it concerns the verbal section of the test. So I hope you keep practicing and stay logged on here for subsequent helpful videos such as this one.